Avi, we are at one of the most strategic and violent crossroads in the entire Middle East right now. Tell our viewers where we are and why it's so important.
We are located on a place called Tel Saki. It's in the center part of the Israeli part of the Golan Heights, and we are looking that direction, which is to the east. And actually, Eric, what you see in front of you is part of the Syrian side of the Golan Heights, which is a stage for a massive battles that has been going on in Syria for the last couple of years.
Tell us some of the major players we have right now, a stone's throw from where we're standing, who are slugging it out, enemies not only of Israel, but of America and the West.
Let us talk first about specifically the district of Daraa that we see right in front of us. 2 out of the 3 major developments happens right now in that district that you see right in front of you. One of the development is the fact that there are pockets right in front of you in a distance of 3, 4, 5, 6 miles away from where we are right now. There are pockets of ISIS.
So Avi, you're saying ISIS is here, just a few miles away from where we're standing right now, a short distance. It's no wonder that over your shoulder, as we see, we have UN observers who are looking out over this district in Syria. So pockets of ISIS, Avi, tell us who they are and what they're doing here.
ISIS factors in that specific region, Daraa, which borders both Israel as well as Jordan.
Right.
We estimate their numbers in a couple of hundreds militants at the most. It is known under the name of Jaysh Khalid bin al-Walid, the army of Khalid bin al-Walid. And they are scattered in some towns a few miles away from here, very close to the Israeli-Syrian ceasefire line.
Yeah.
This is one factor that is located on the ground, ISIS. The second factor, a major one, is what is known as the Free Syrian Army. This is one of the major Syrian rebel bodies that was already formed back in the middle of 2011.
Before we continue here, lay out the major players here in Syria that everyone needs to know about.
Okay, Erick, it's a great question. Let us start with something very significant. The war in Syria that is portrayed quite often as a civil war is not a civil war, it's way beyond. Because right now what you have in Syria are Iranian forces, Shiite militias, Hezbollah from Lebanon, Iraqi Shiite militias, Afghan Shiite militias, Pakistani Shiite militias that are backed by the Iranians occupying parts of Syria. We have the Syrian forces, of course, of Assad. We have Sunni Syrians that are formed in different rebels groups. We have non-Syrian Sunni militants from Tunisia, Algeria, Sudan,
France,
Egypt,
Britain,
wherever.
Germany, right?
Also here operating in Syria.
The foreign fighters.
And we have US forces in the northern part of Syria engaged now in the fight against the stronghold of ISIS. And we have Russian forces in Syria.
Oh, and the Turks as well, right?
And the Turks as well, by the way.
So this is not much going on here in Syria.
So describing it as a civil war is an understatement of the year, sort of speaking. It's way beyond the civil war. It has to be understood as such, which has, of course, global ramifications.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all that later in the show, Avi, the end game, everything else. But man, some of the world's worst actors right here, a few miles from where we're standing right now. Before we go to our next location here in the Golan along Syria's border, you mentioned ISIS. Now everyone at home, an American audience, says ISIS, and their sensors go up. Tell us a little bit more about what ISIS is doing here 4 or 5 miles from where we're standing, what their goals are here.
ISIS here does not form a strategic threat to the state of Israel. However, it forms a threat on the ground. The Jordanians are very much disturbed with the presence of ISIS because one of the most highest objective of ISIS is to topple down the Jordan monarchy.
Wow, King Abdullah, who was just in Washington just recently meeting with President Trump.
Correct.
And who maintains a peace treaty with Israel. We have American, British, German, Swedish, French fighters leaving to join ISIS. Then they return home. These are Western passport holders. When they come back, all bets are off. The Jordanians have the same concern. And by the way, folks, when those Arabic terms roll off Avi's tongue, know that he's a fluent Arabic speaker. As you can tell, he's one of the world's top experts on this subject matter. Avi, what a start. Where are we going next here in the Golan?
Well, actually, Eric, we are going to move north, and we will be looking at the other district that I mentioned before, the Quneitra district.
Which is a hot district.
Which is a hot spot, a hot district. And in that specific district, we will talk about the third geostrategic development which is enormously significant in the context of the war in Syria, and that is the presence of Iranian armed forces.
Wow. We go from ISIS to Iran, and I'm guessing Hezbollah. The plot only thickens here in the Golan Heights, a crossroads in the world today of this earth-shaking conflict, quite literally. Avi, let's go. Lead the way.
Looking to the east, what we see in front of us is part of the district of Quneitra. You may remember we started the day talking about the district of Daraa in the south.
Yes.
Now this is the district of Quneitra. And right in front of you, you see the major town in the district of Quneitra, a town called the Ba'ath Khan el-Arnabe city, which is controlled by Assad.
It's a big city.
It's a big city.
Yeah.
It's a big city. It sits actually on a highway that connects all the way up, going up to the northeast, straight to the capital of Syria, Damascus, which...
About 20 miles from here, Damascus?
20 miles away from here. That's it.
Also the scene of some major fighting, obviously.
Also the scene of major fighting.
So right now, Avi, you said this town here, Ba'ath, is controlled by Assad, the Assad regime, which means it's also controlled by...
The Iranians. You have an Iranian presence over there. You have Hezbollah's, the Lebanese Shiite militias forces also scattered over there. And the amazing thing, Eric, is that in between us and that city, in the middle of the field, you may be able to see the line of the Israeli-Syrian fence. So everything between the fence to the city is controlled by the Syrian rebels.
You're telling us now these are Sunni radical Islamic rebels right here.
These are Sunni Islamist affiliated factors. Some of them are more radical, some of them are relatively less radical, but they are Islamist affiliated. And the interesting thing is that as they are trying to connect to their brothers, the rebels in the area of Damascus, they need to bypass the corridor that is controlled by the Assad and the Iranians through the city of Khan el-Arnabe. So what they did, they paved a bypassing road that goes in between us, in between the fence and between the city, and goes all the way up straight northeast, basically supposed to connect the rebels, the Syrian rebels, all the way from the south with the brothers in the outskirts of Damascus. The village, the town that you see over there, is a town called Jobt al-Khashab, which is predominantly Sunni, and it's controlled by the rebels. So it's a very significant milestone or a point on this corridor that the rebels are trying to pave, connecting the region of Quneitra with their brothers in these outskirts of Damascus.
So they want to get from Quneitra to connect with their fellow brothers, as you said, up in Damascus, about 20 miles from here, Avi. What's standing in their way? Why are they unable to do that?
Excellent question. Because right beyond that village, Jobt al-Khashab, a Sunni predominantly village, there is a major Druze Syrian village called Khader that literally stands on the way between the rebels and their brothers in the outskirts of Damascus. That Druze village of Khader is controlled by Assad and the Hezbollah.
Wow. And it seems like from listening to you, it's kind of tit for tat. Maybe the rebels will seize a town, Assad and the Iranians will seize it back, and then it's all over again. This is constantly, these villages and towns are changing hands, and there's constant fighting.
Up next, could the Golan Heights become Iran's next terror base against Israel? Find out after the break.